Evening, welcome to a Wednesday night edition of the Buddy Martin Show. This is always a special one. We have some breaking news tonight and someone who might have a little insight on it. Also, we'll be talking to Scott Carter about things that are going on at the University of Florida, and Franz Beard will drop by to talk about, among other things, changes in the University of Florida communications department. I'm already getting some flack about it. So, it's Allie Peek Wilbur night. We're always glad about that. Stay tuned. She's in the orange and blue room. She's next on the Buddy Martin Show right here, right now.
It's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening. Welcome to the program. Buddy Martin. We're live in Panama City, right across St. Andrews Bay. And my colleague is in Tampa, St. Pete, somewhere down there, Orlando. I'm not even sure. I know she tried to go to Jacksonville. That didn't work out. But the breaking news coming tonight about a prize five-star back. Florida didn't get him the first time around, but Cormani McClain is going to become a Gator. And here's someone who's been writing and talking about that a lot. And she's been started up. You don't want to mess with this lady. She's trouble.
I'm not at all.
How you doing, Allie?
I'm doing good. Just gearing up for the last week of school next week. So I feel we joke and we call this Mayvember because it's an insane time of the year. It's just like November.
Well, I'm going to say it again at the risk of sounding like a broken record. I'm so amazed at what you're able to do. First of all, the quality of your work is wonderful. And secondly, the fact that you spend 80-hour weeks and you have two sets of twins, that would be enough to do anybody in right there. And now you do this terrific podcast, which is taking up. Did I not hear recently that you had a staggering number of viewers and watchers this past year?
Yeah, the last 12 months, we are at 1.95 million views, which is pretty exciting. I honestly didn't realize till I went and looked up the stats last week, but I'm pretty proud of what we've built.
You have done a terrific job, and you've done it by yourself, and you've done it the old-fashioned way by going and starting in the TV business and then changing over and marrying a football player who made him a media star and then became a mom of four and then started your own podcast. I mean, oh no, really good stuff. Good to see you doing so well. Now, there is some news tonight on something. Probably needs some clarification on our parts because we've talked about this a good bit. And one thing you'll learn if you have it is that a lot of people don't get the media's role and what they do here. And they some think we're cheerleaders, some think we're just out to destroy the program, whatever. I always hold you up as an example of someone who's got so much skin in the game in this regard for your grandfather, and your father, and your uncle, and your brother, and your cousin. So many Gators have played there, and your name is well known. But in the media business, and it's not like I want to explain to people, we're not asking to be catered to.
No.
We're not asking to be whatever. Just give us a chance to do our jobs, have a fair policy. And I realize it's really hard now today with all the things going on, but there have been some bumps in the road in Florida. We haven't said much about them on the air, and we're not necessarily aiming at anybody in particular, but the media department, and the reason it came up, Allie, was in context, is we were talking about Norm Carlson.
The best of the
the best of the best. And he passed on Friday. In his day, it was done differently. It was there to help and assist you any way he could in a fair manner and to everybody, and getting information about the Florida Gators in the paper, on the radio, or on TV, and doing your job, helping himself, his university, and you. And it was a great relationship. That has changed drastically. And it's really hard to navigate sometimes when you don't get a clear cut policy. Now, I know some people are going to say, oh, buddy, who cares? I'm sorry. But something happened today, which I think is significant. I don't know why it happened, but you and I had talked about this before it did happen. And the University of Florida's, I don't even know its correct title. It used to be called SID, the Director of Communications for University of Florida Athletics, Rick Hurtado. Well, I think it's been there 3 years, I believe. I'm not sure. Resigned today, and it turns out he's going to take a job with the Miami Dolphins. When I first heard about it, the context which I heard about it was basically that he was gone, he was out. Let's be honest. You and I have known Rick's job has not been the easiest in the world. We ask even reasonable requests are turned down. We're not sure why. Somebody above him, whatever. The policy never seems to be clear. I'll use an example. Let's talk about what happened to you last week. And again, folks, we're not here to cry or whine or tell you how mean, ugly the world is. Just trying to clarify something here about this process and just to straighten it out. Now, I've been accused of being a hatchet man. Anyway, take us to last week, what you were trying to do and what happened to you.
Well, there's the caravan, the Gator caravan with Coach Napier's coming to Tampa in about 10 days. And I emailed Rick because I wanted to be on the media list for the event. It's in Tampa. We generally go when these things are in Tampa. I've actually never asked to be on the media list before. They usually just have former players and their significant others go in to the room where the coaches are prior to the event starting, kind of talk to them. And they usually just kind of sit them up front too. And the coach usually acknowledges them. But I just figured, it would be awesome if I could get some sound that I could actually use because I do feel like I have to be very careful because I wear two different hats. So something that I may hear as a former player's wife isn't necessarily something that I can turn around and report on the podcast. So I wanted there to kind of be clear line. Okay, I'm here as part of the media. And Rick did write me right back, and he said that the policy had changed and that now all of the caravans were going to be for local media, like your local ABC affiliate, radio station, things like that. And that there would only be two opportunities. One was in Gainesville that already had happened. And then the next was Jacksonville, which was happening Monday. This was last Friday. That media that was podcasts or, Gator centered sports as opposed to local sports would have an opportunity, but even then it needed to be credentialed media. So, which I am not credentialed media at the moment. So I wrote back and asked, what is the criteria for credentialed media? And this is what led to me looking up how many viewers I'd had. And he said, if you're affiliated with some sort of national publication, so like if you wrote for ESPN or if you wrote for Rivals, because that's also national, you needed 130,000, I believe, I'm trying to think of the exact word that they use, but like essentially hits, 130,000 views, 130,000 whatever. But then if you were independent, it was about 50,000. But then it also said, but it's also at our discretion. So I wrote back and was like, okay, well, I hit those metrics. I would love to be credentialed. And my plan was that I could try and go on Monday. I didn't hear back from Rick. I still haven't heard back from Rick. I would assume with the news that broke today, he's just been kind of busy. But, it's not the end of the world. I also don't think it should be particularly difficult to get credentialed. But it's where we are. I saw your tweet. I saw some of the feedback from it. The interesting thing is, I don't know if this is where it's like most places. I do think we're in this world where everybody wants to control the narrative. And that's not just a Florida thing at all. Like, I just think that news is 24/7. It didn't used to be like that. Kids have access to social media and the internet and just their fans in a different way than we ever have before, which means we see more of the problems maybe, or like the behind the scenes that maybe we're not supposed to see, which then leads to lots of questions that, are uncomfortable for coaches and staffs and things like that. And there's no specific incident at Florida that I'm referring to, but I think it makes universities as a whole so much more careful than they used to be. And I think they want to tell their own narrative now, as opposed to let me befriend these reporters and allow them to tell
Right.
our.
So true. So true. So, and let me just clarify by saying, and again, folks, I'm not going to bore you with the details of our work conditions. I
Sure.
am making a comment here because it's significant. First of all, having just lost Norm Carlson, who was one
Yeah.
of the model SIDs, a guy everybody says was the best who ever was at Florida, and how the job has changed. And thinking about Norm and thinking about naturally what it used to be like. Sure, we know it changes. We're fine with that. I don't have any real axes to grind. I'm not
No.
covering the beat every day like some guys are. It's hard out there. A lot of people hate Edgar Thompson, and they hate guys who cover the beat on a regular basis. They think they're out to destroy the program. That's a whole other program. Let me say what I wrote. When I heard this confirmed, I broke the story saying, hearing rumblings about imminent changes in UF Communications Department, which has been under criticism for lack of consistency and frankly poor communication with the football media. That falls at the feet of Billy Napier and Scott Strickland. Not a good look at this time. Okay, now, maybe I was over the top a little bit there. I don't know. Maybe I was. But given our conversations, and you know what they were in recent days, the frustrations of never being able to shake the apple tree and have the apples fall down, you wonder, what I got to do here? People say, oh, yeah, but you're complaining you didn't get interviews. Nah, you know what? No, I'm not. I'm going to get the interviews for the players. I've got that set up to another feature. And yeah, but it could be easier for those who do the job well and just asking for simple requests like you
Yeah.
to do that. So I put that out. Well, all of a sudden I started getting these texts. I noticed that Scott Strickland sent me 3 texts and then deleted them. I don't know what that means. I have no idea. And then Rick did text me and
Okay.
did say that she explained he had taken a job with the Miami Dolphins in a similar position. He's from Miami.
Yeah.
He and his wife want to go back there. He had a good relationship here and denied there were any real issues for him. I
For
don't know.
him.
Okay, I'll take his word at that. Fine. I'm not trying to cause you problems. But from the standpoint of a working press person, there are
Yeah.
more bumps in the road than there should be. And it's not
Yeah.
just in Florida, it's not other places too.
Sure.
I simply
Sure.
want to see it work out for everybody. That's all I want. I don't want any special favors. Just give me what everybody else is entitled to. So let's get that clear right now. And of course, there were some mean streets and mean tweets that followed up to that. People
Yeah.
said things, as you know, and you saw. So that's
Yeah.
what that's about.
So, I think, first of all, if it is a similar position with the Dolphins, it's the NFL, which
Yeah.
many perceive as more prestigious. It is
Right.
more money. I would almost guarantee that it's more money. And if it's the opportunity to go home, those are all great things. And in a bubble that move makes complete sense. I also think it's probably less of a pressure cooker than Florida is right now. It is not easy to be on a staff that's under the microscope.
Yeah.
That's for anybody in any portion of that. And Rick probably takes a lot of heat in the position that he is in. It is a tricky position, it is an ever evolving position. And really interesting about the Strickland texting and then deleting the text. I wonder if he realizes he
I have
can do
no
that.
idea what's going on with that, but I mean, it doesn't really matter that much. I just want to clarify that there was no agenda on anybody's part here. It just
Right.
so happened you and I were having some serious discussions about
Yeah.
issues that media has, and I liken to this. And I'll get off the subject and we'll get Scott Carter in here in a minute. And it's like this. When Josh Pate interviewed Billy, and one of the first questions was, how are things going here? And Billy said, well, you're here now. You see what it's like on the inside. What do you think? And he gave a great answer. I think the people in building under this roof got it all together. What I've seen is impressive in comparison to anything I've seen. He said that's how it is in here, but out there, the perception is different. I think it's a little bit of that right here in this. I think okay, maybe inside the building they think everything's going great, and me, I'm sorry, I will say this. I'll qualify myself as an expert. I've been in this business for a long time, and I used to do a job like Rick Hurtado's when I was doing golf in Colorado, so I understand both sides of the issue here. So, and just to say everything's hunky dory, no, it's not, and they need to go in now and tweak these things and fix it. I don't care if that doesn't affect me at all, hardly that much. I just think it's a better way to do it. That's what I wanted to say. We'll get that on the record and go from there. Probably nobody cares. So, but I'll tell you what people do care about. They care about Meldon Law. I'm happily announcing I'll be Friday night at Meldon Law's Scholar Athlete Dinner in Gainesville. Yeah, I'm going to be up there with Jeffrey and Coach Spurrier and Freddie Wiebe and the whole gang, and have dinner and see these new scholar athletes. Jeffrey's has some terrific people over the years who have been. I think Patrick Young was 3 times in a row, I believe. Anyway, so they've had some really, really good ones, and I love what they're doing. I know Meldon Law does a lot of things at the University of Florida. They sponsor a ton of things. They give away a lot of tickets, their Facebook pages. They want you to know they're in the law business too. They do like you to know that they will take your calls and talk to you about your cases. But they are so proud of this Scholar Athlete Night, and I'll be honored to be able to get up and grab the microphone and say who knows what at that bunch on Friday in Gainesville. So it's a big night. Meldon Law, they won't back down. All right, Allie, how big is Cormani McClain?
I think it's potentially huge. I actually really, really like this pickup. I think that I know that it's a controversial pickup, but I think it's a really low risk, potentially high reward gamble. And I think that it's one of those things that a lot of people have been wanting to see Napier swing for the fences in the portal. And I think that that's what this is. Now, Cormani McClain, a lot of people thought he was going to Florida. He committed to Miami, verbally committed to Miami in about October of 2022. And then on signing day, there was rumblings that maybe he'll flip to Florida. We'll see what happens. And he didn't show up for his signing day. And then he eventually signed with Colorado. So kind of burned Miami, kind of led Florida on a little bit, or maybe didn't, maybe just changed his mind at the last second. I don't know, but ends up at Colorado. Didn't go well for him. Deion has said some things publicly about him not going to class or not going to film study. He played in 9 games, started 4 of them. I'm not a massive fan of true freshmen starting unless they're really prepared. Now, that 5-star rating does tell you, in theory, you're prepared to walk onto a college field as a freshman. That's, part of the criteria of being that 5-star. But I think in most cases, that's a pretty difficult ask. But anyway, so it didn't work out. So he hit the transfer portal. There is nothing about this kid that tells me that he's not worth taking a risk on, right? Like, he doesn't have trouble with the law. He doesn't have trouble with drugs. He doesn't have, it seems like he might have a little bit of a maturity issue, which, to be completely honest, most 18 to 20-year-old boys have, right? Particularly if you are coming from being a big fish in a small pond and there's a lot of adjustment going on. And, but I think that Coach Napier is a better personality to handle that than Deion Sanders is.
Good point.
There's nothing about Napier that tells me he's got this huge, massive ego. And it's just different than Deion Sanders. It's not the persona that Deion puts out there. He has much more of a father figure. I care about you off field to mentality, at least that's the vibe that I get. That's how it comes across. So I think if there's somebody that is going to be able to kind of help Cormani right the ship, it makes more sense that it would be a Napier than it would be a Deion Sanders. And, I think the culture in UF's locker room is really good. So there's a much better chance that locker room changes one person as opposed to one person changing that locker room. So I think it's a pretty low risk gamble. He'll come in and work and he'll be successful, or he won't, and he'll end up in the portal. But that's not really any skin off anybody's back but his own.
Great point. And as Scott Carter joins us, this is kind of a no-brainer to me. I don't see the downside of it. I'm a little bit pleasantly surprised they were able to figure out how to put him as Olin's preferred walk-on. I never thought I'd see that, but hey, why not? It may work out. Hey, listen? He can an NIL deal and get that taken care of easily, right, Scott Carter?
Yeah, you have to be creative today. That's what you saw with McLean, and I'm like you guys. It's a high risk, high reward, maybe addition to the program. You kind of wonder, after he goes out to Colorado. I just kind of assume that at his position, he's going to go play for one of the 5 best cornerbacks in the history of the NFL. So, when that doesn't work out, you kind of like, boy, what's going on there? But, he's here now, so we'll see how it works. But I understand why they took him. And if he lives up to, even 75% of what I see the excitement today on Twitter, he'll be a good player.
Yeah, and by the way, Shane has been talking about this for quite some time. While he's glad to see him come, he says Florida already has 2 NFL corners. This will make a third, but not a bad thing to have, right, Allie?
I mean, the great thing about UF is they don't need him to work out this second. It would be great if they did. It's awesome to have the depth. Obviously, that room can always improve, but it's a pretty decently stacked room with a lot of young guys that got some experience last year, which maybe that helps. Maybe that removes a little bit of the pressure that McLean felt at Colorado to immediately come in and be the stud and perform. But, I think this is a no-brainer move. I think there's a great chance that it works out, and if it doesn't, it's not a big deal, basically.
Yeah, it is the day's world, Scott, that's for sure. Well, I mean, I don't want to jinx anybody, but it seems like lately a few things have been going right up in Hogtown up there. If you go back to the softball team, Scott, what a performance that was, Sam Walton. I still can't get over the hump after saying 15 games ago I didn't think they were elite. Of course, I had to eat that crow, and they were unbelievable. And what we see, and here's the thing about it, young, and I mean that pitcher, is she gonna pitch? I mean, she can throw every. What's her name? Rothrock. She can throw every game. I think, Scott.
Well, I was looking at her stats. I know she has over 200 innings already, but she's their ace. And then they have Ava Brown, of course, and then Wooten, who has come on a little bit lately. Miller. So they have 4 pitchers, basically, buddy. But yeah, Rothrock is the clear number 1, and you don't have to be on every game with the lineup they have. I mean, they really are starting to hit the ball again like they did earlier in the season. So they start the regional on Friday against Florida Gulf Coast, and that's going on through Sunday here in Gainesville at the softball stadium. So the way they're playing, I kind of expect them to advance on and get to a Super Regional.
Yeah.
But if you're going to get hot, it's the right time to be hot, and that's what they did. Obviously, the SEC tournament to win I think the 6th SEC tournament title in program history. So a good sign for Tim Walton's team.
What a performance by that team. A great job by Tim Walton for sure. As long as we're on the subject, Scott, talk about some of the other embarrassment of riches going on right now with the rest of the programs, right down even to the lacrosse program, whatever, the golf, all these things going on. I was saying, Allie, the other day in my conversation last week with David Bolton after you left the show about this is a time when you as a columnist, if you want to pick your topic or your mood, and David Whitley agreed, you could go negative or positive either way on a column. And right now, you could go positive on things at Florida because there's so many good things to talk about, including the track team. Scott, give us a little wrap up of all the good things that have happened to the Gators the last couple of weeks.
Well, I mean, the SEC track and field outdoor championships were here over the weekend. Gators did not win it, but they won several individual honors. And, one thing I've learned with Mouse Holloway's teams, sometimes they're better at the nationals than they are
They're built for the nationals, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll just see. I mean, he tapers them to where they're going to be at their best at the biggest meet of the year. That's still the plan. So I like some of what he's doing there. I think they have the athletes to still compete for national titles this year. Then what else? You got lacrosse plays at Maryland tomorrow. If they win, they'll be in their first Final Four in 12 years, only the second in program history. They've won 19 games in a row, and I haven't really been paying a lot of attention to them until lately. I did a story today on the goalkeeper, Elise Fennell, who's been playing phenomenal. She got benched earlier in the season at Maryland. Now she's back and playing her best of the season. So it's something Gator fans can latch on to tomorrow and see how they do. Maryland's won 14 national championships. So if you go to Maryland and win like they did earlier in the regular season, if you can do it again, that spells that should be good sign for the Gators in the Final Four. So we'll see how that shakes out. And then, of course, baseball closes at Georgia. I think we all know the story there. They're going to have to go up there and win at least 2 to have a chance at the tournament. Even if they sweep, I think they're still kind of riding the fence, probably have to go to the SEC tournament and do something. So if there is a negative, buddy, that's kind of it right now. The softball, lacrosse, track, and golf, as you mentioned, they're all the positives right now.
Yeah, for sure, a lot of stuff going on. Well, it's a busy spring. Allie, what'd you call it again? May what?
Mayvember.
Mayvember. Yeah, that's a good name for it. Yeah, a lot of things going on. There was a change today in the communications department. I'm not sure if you're at liberty to talk about it. I did get a tweet from or text from Rick Hurtado explaining he was going to Miami Dolphins. I'm presuming there's been no change unless they hired you in the last 15 minutes, which I'd be all in favor of, Scott, with the communications department. Anything you can comment on there?
No, I mean you're talking about Rick leaving to the
right, to go to the Dolphins.
Yeah, Rick Hurtado, the SID. He got a job with the Miami Dolphins, and Rick's been there a couple of years, and
three, I believe.
Yeah, 3 seasons. I think he kind of took over one mid-season, and he came back to Florida from the Broncos. And I knew he always wanted to get back to the NFL. So he's from Miami. He's got a job with the Dolphins. So good for Rick, and I know they're going to, look and fill that position, the football SID. And no, buddy, I don't think I'm one of those people, if I couldn't be creative, I probably would get out of this field. I like to write. But those SIDs, they're tough jobs, as you know. We lost the greatest one in Gators history.
Yeah.
Weekend. Yeah. Carlson, he was unique. He was at a different time. But they're putting out a lot of fires all the time. And it's just a different world than Norm knew. But boy, Norm was the best, and it was kind of sad to lose him.
And of course, a very good friend, and RIP to him and Sylvia and the family. Norm came from an era, and Allie, you probably don't know this, when it seemed like you couldn't do your job if you're covered football in the SEC without the cooperation of the SID. And the SID's job was almost like, today, I got to find the local columnist something to write about. I mean, they were literally just like on the staff almost in that regard. And they were very helpful. And here's how good they were, Allie. It's one thing to be treated well in your own hometown. There were guys, legendary guys of Carlson's era, a guy named Bob Hartley, a little before my time, Mississippi State. He would go to the airport and pick up visiting press, and bring them in. Okay? Now, you wonder if people even know you're there or want you to be there. But I mean, it was always like Tennessee always had a fantastic Friday night steak event for all of. I mean, I remember eating one night there, and I remember seeing a couple of guys eating steaks that looked like they were bigger than a football. Unbelievable. And they did things like that. They actually felt like they wanted you. And Scott, you remember this because you were a part of this too. Like you really belonged and wanted to be there. Today's world, I don't think it's a conscious decision, but because of the way things are built and because of the way the media's changed, it's almost like, who can help me out here? And you know this, Scott, because I'm always bugging you all the time and calling you up. And so it's talk about how different it is. And Allie, from your perspective, you've been around it, but you weren't a part of the good days.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that Norm Carlson helped me with my grandfather's obituary because I needed to fact check it with him because he knew more about it than I did. But it's a 24/7 news cycle, and I think that changes pretty much everything.
It does, and just the way the media is built. And Scott, we talked about this. I had a wonderful conversation with Coach Spurrier last week about Norm and about his days of growing up at Norm, and what it was like to work with guys like Tom McEwen and guys like that in the media who really, they went out to get you. Now, they'd write a critical column on you, but they went out to get you, and it was a more enjoyable time. Anyway, I know I'm getting old. That's just the way it is. So
Tom McLean, go ahead, Scott. Go.
No. I mean, you go ahead because I want to hear what you say about Tom McEwen because I love Tom McEwen.
So Tom McEwen's son Rick was married to my Aunt Kathy for.
All right.
They divorced, but they were married for many years, and I would write, "Hey Tom," every single week, and he would call my dad all the time and be like, "Skipper, I can't print her every single week." Like, it would not be fair. I mean, I'm like 9 years old, 10 years old writing, but he would call pretty regularly, like probably 4 times a year, and like call with the message of,
that's funny.
Or not, don't let it hurt her feelings, but I literally cannot print her.
That's great.
Wow, that's a terrific
funny.
story.
Yeah, I mean, when I started the Tribune, Tom was still obviously the writing columns. Martin Finley was our main columnist, but Tom would still do his Sunday column, and it was must read if you grew up or lived in Tampa because he was so embedded in the community. And I could talk for hours about this. Times change, right? I mean, horse and buggies are no longer popular. That's just the way the world is. And there's a lot of that world that you knew, buddy, and that I was midstream when it changed. I knew the old world, but also knew I had to adapt to this world or I wasn't going to be around long. And new world offers, like you guys, each of you have podcasts or shows. It offers a lot different voices and a lot of different opportunities to different people. And, there's good and bad to both sides. I do miss the human part of getting to know people around the beat a lot. I mean, there's just many people around the beat as much as there used to be. I started this job in 2010, which, 14 years ago almost.
It's a long time ago, Scott.
A long time ago, but it's not a long time ago. Well, we had 7 beat writers living in Gainesville at that time.
Wow.
We had one beat writer outside of the Gainesville Sun living in Gainesville. And that's Edgar Thompson, Orlando Center. And all the other papers have just kind of faded out. And that's only been in the last decade and 4 years. So that just shows you how much it's changed. And that's just the world, though.
It has. By the way, Allie and I are sorting out, commiserating about trying to figure out the rules and regulations of who can cover what anymore, because you never know what you're allowed to. She had an incident last week where she tried to be a part of the caravan and was kind of basically told she didn't qualify, which is kind of a joke. But anyway, the point is that last night on the program, when I said Allie tried to get there and couldn't be there for the meeting, and somebody said, "Don't worry about it. You didn't miss anything." And when they gave me some quotes, the bottom line was there was a little information here tonight. I thought I had it, and actually Kevin Brockway wrote something today in the Gainesville Sun, and I was going to share with Allie, but now I can't find it. But it really didn't say very much with Allie. But I love the spirit of wanting to be out there and wanting to know what's going on. That is, Scott, is the basis of all good reporting and writing, is wanting to be there, right? Here's the comment. Billy said in Ponte Vedra, according to Kevin Brockway, "For the first time, we can be picky," he said to the Gator Caravan. "I think we've probably been 6 or 8 in the hole the last 2 years. So we've been pretty aggressive, meaning now. So we've had to go uncover some players and see if we could find some guys that were capable. And you end up a little bit like under 85 being the roster limit. I think this year we've been playing with a lead a little bit. So I think that's healthy." Now, that's not something I've heard before. And I think if you look at now the scoreboard, Scott, and you and Allie, what they've done in the portal, what have you, a lot of stuff has happened. not the least of which is Cormani McClain, the possibility of another one falling tonight, the wide receiver falling tomorrow. And so here's an interesting thing. Change precipitates change. Somebody wrote this. This is what happened after Corey Raymond was fired. By the way, I liked Corey Raymond. I thought he was a good coach, but he says, this person says, Cormani McClain, 5-star prospect. Asa Turner, for Washington safety, started in a national semifinal and championship game. Jameer Grimsley, 5-star athlete Nick Saban, Alabama, initially beat Raymond out for. DJ Douglas, highly intelligent safety who isn't afraid to get dirty and make the hard, uncomfortable tackle. Trezezy Bridges, another physical safety who can get down and make a tough tackle. And somebody said, Will Harris has got a lot going on here. I think that was all kinds of weather. So I think it does, the change does precipitate change, Scott.
Well, it does. I mean, and I think you hit the nail on the head there with Will Harris. I mean, the guy has come in, and if you saw him or if you follow him on Twitter, you saw him making rounds all around the country, right? The first week he was on the job. So it obviously has made an impact, and I think he's a younger coach. I'm sure he connects with these players a little bit more maybe than Corey Raymond at this point. Corey Raymond, I mean, he doesn't need anybody to pump him up. I mean, he's had a great career. He's a great position coach. But I think, Will Harris maybe just connects with them different. And I know, Allie, you probably cover this closer than I do in the off season. So, you probably have more insight than me, really.
I just think they're doing the things that they need to do in the portal. Now, Florida's not signing a ton because they don't have the room to sign a ton, but they've been incredibly selective, gotten pieces that they need. Will Harris has been incredibly impressive since he's come to Gainesville. And you're right, Corey Raymond doesn't need anybody to pump him up. He is a talent. The list of guys that he's put in the NFL is a mile long. But sometimes the younger, hungry guys are the ones that are successful. I think that we can also tip our hat to Florida Victorious. That is a part of all of the stuff that we have going on right now. That's where we are in college football. They have done an incredible job. And I really do think the culture in this locker room is good. I was actually told that with Cormani McClain, that DB room got to vote. Did they want him to come in? And that they said, yes, they wanted him to come in. And I just think, that's really cool. You're going to want to play for a guy that you want in that room. There's no hard feelings about bringing somebody in that the majority wanted. There's, probably a little bit of a responsibility for you to help, get him on the right path because you chose for him to be there. Like, it really, what is going on behind the scenes is really good. Now, whether or not that translates to wins, we will see come August, but I like what we're hearing out of it.
Yeah, good point. Along the lines of things like this happening, change happening so fast, overlooking change, not realizing, I guess I missed Linda Taylor leaving. I know it's probably a big deal. I thought, I didn't know Linda, didn't have a lot of dealings with her, but boy, she comes with a 5-star reputation. I read some stuff today. I think you might have read that, I'm not sure. She's doing some different things now. She's in charge of NCAA championships, UA Title IX coordinator, right? And boy, the praises for her are unbelievable, including Scott Strickland. He said she'll be great because she inspires a lot of confidence in her leadership and presence. Everything she touches is run really well. This will be a totally different role for her. I expect things to go smoothly. Scott, is so key to have good people in key places. And for so long, she did her job so well. It's like a center in football. You don't hear their name, that's a good thing, right? They're doing their job. Yeah. Just say a word about Linda Taylor, who's coming back here, I think, soon.
Yeah, Linda, I mean, I could tell right when I joined the UAA. It didn't take me long to realize that she was someone who commanded respect in the building. And she was always just kind of calm and under control, never really got emotional about things, just always used her knowledge. And, she's a lawyer by trade, and she had her hands on a lot of different things. I think, Jeremy Foley certainly relied on her a lot in decision making. I know Scott Strickland did. And, she just always was someone that impressed me. And I didn't work closely with Linda, but, I told her as soon as I saw that she was leaving for the NCAA, I texted her and said, I've always really respected you and the way you carry yourself. And I think that's just a general consensus inside the building. She was one of those people that you just respected because you knew whatever she had her hands on, she did her homework and was prepared and was going to, be prepared to make a good decision.
I like a good role model for women too.
Yeah, and honestly, being in charge of stuff with Title IX for the NCAA, maybe about to get busy for her with play changes and things like that. There's going to be some major implications with all of that as the rules change in each state.
Of all the things that have happened lately in college sports, I guess it's Caitlin Clark is the main reason. The sudden explosion of women's sports is flabbergasting. I mean, I can't believe it, Scott. I thought they might do better. This has been incredible. Are you guys as equally as shocked as I am?
Abby, I'm sorry. Allie, you want to start or you want me to?
Oh, you go ahead.
No, I mean, I'm not totally surprised, buddy, because it's been building. I can still remember, we've had these other watershed moments that you think it was going to happen. I still remember the 1999 World Cup when U.S. women won and Brandy Chastain become this name. Then, she had her Nike commercials. But, it didn't – I mean, the NBA, WNBA started around that time or right before then. And it just seemed like there were little pockets of excitement. But I think what we're seeing here is a different era. And I think a lot of it has to do with just – the media exposure they get now, the NIL opportunities. And there's people out there who are willing to invest finally in women's sports in a way that they've always lacked. I mean, it's whether it's been the professional soccer or professional softball or whatever, all these sports that these women play in college and they become kind of household names with the school's fans, then they kind of disappear unless they're at that level of an Olympian. And now they've got more opportunities to kind of maybe have a career in sports afterwards. So I'm all for it as someone with a couple of daughters. And, it's pretty cool to see because I will say I've enjoyed covering a lot of the women's sports at UF. I mean, I knew a lot about gymnastics, and I never thought I would know much about gymnastics.
I mean, gymnastics that is one of the best things for that has come out of this era, the social media era and NIL, what it has done for women's sports. Part of the reason that the women are doing so well is because people know them as people, because they've done such a great job with the campaigns they've gotten involved in or their social media and things like that, probably better than most men have, honestly. But yeah, I have 4 daughters. I love seeing this. And truth be told, even since I was a student at UF, softball, postseason is some of the most exciting that exists, right? Watching a soccer game in Gainesville when it's cold is, one of my most favorite college memories. Like, there is always been good women's sports being played. It's just nobody was really seeing it.
Interesting. I was just running across some old ads from the St. Pete Times, a promo ad. When I was down there as sports editor, they ran a full-page ad with myself and my daughter, Lori, who was then 11. And they took shots of us and the Mets. They had pictures of her and Tom Seaver, her and Yogi Berra, her and Rusty Staub. And the quote was from 11-year-old daughter, Dad, when I grow up, will I be able to play Major League Baseball? And that was such a foreign thought, that something like that would happen. She competed later in track, whatever. But as a father of 2 daughters, I get that. So I was about Scott, just like you do. And so happy to see finally a breakthrough where women's sports on their own. They're getting the eyeballs on TV. And it's really fun to watch them play. The level of they're playing at is so much. It's come a long way since my wife played for Sylvester High School, and there were 3 women at one end of the court and 3 at the other. basketball. So, but anyway, it's really good to see. It makes me feel good. I'm glad that America's, and by the way, it's opening up a whole new market. Have you seen the WNBA women's teams traveling in the private planes? And it hadn't been that long ago that I think the Pistons were the first NBA team to have their own plane. Now, apparently, this is every day is that they're flying around. It's really great to see stuff like that going on. So we're happy. All right, so let's talk for one more second about Scott. You're there, you see it, you feel it, and it's hard for us to kind of gauge what the vibe is on Florida right now. It feels like something is going on. Well, I'll let you guys think about that. Abby and Allie, we talked about this a lot. We don't know behind the scenes what's happening, as was said in the interview last week that Billy had 2 weeks ago about what's going on inside, what's going outside. Perceptions are different. I would like you all to tell me, to dig deep, tell me if you had to put your money down right now on the direction of the football program, the way things are going. I don't know the records. There's no telling what may happen. It feels like things are inching forward. Hold that thought a second. I'll tell you about Titan MRI, North Central Florida's newest premier independent diagnostic testing facility right there in Gainesville. By the way, if you have a problem getting an appointment for your MRI, problem over, Titan MRI will make a reservation for you for evenings or weekends to come get your MRI. If you can't get your insurance, don't have it right now, no problem. They'll take your card or cash, either one, there, and it's not as expensive as you might think. They pride themselves on great customer service. That's what they're trying to do for you there, to accommodate you outside the regular business hours. So check them out with Titan MRI and find out how you can get the best customer service and the best deal at a convenient place for you. TitanMRI.com. The good vibes, Scott, are you feeling them?
Well, I think they're getting better, buddy. Today is a good vibe day, right? You get a player like Cormani McClain, who,
Yep.
as big as the disappointment was when he went to Colorado initially, now you have some excitement there. You had the excitement over to USC offensive lineman last week. You've got, I think, just the fact that they've had a pretty quiet off season. That's a good sign. So I do feel the momentum has, shifted. Again, I've said this probably to you before. I mean, this is a time of year when that should happen, right, guys? I mean, you should be excited right now.
In the spring.
Yeah, they're announcing game times right now. So, yesterday we found out Miami's at 3:30. So we all were going
to. Yeah, how about that?
We're going to be sweating that day, and then Georgia. We knew Georgia was going to be 3:30. But what was the other one? It's
A&M too, right?
Yeah, a lot of 3:30 games so far. So hopefully we'll get some night ones.
I don't understand now. Maybe it's because of the shift to CBS, and now I don't know.
But you would think if it works like it did with CBS, right? The 3:30 slot is second most valuable, first being 8 p.m. But will ABC even have an 8 p.m. game every week, or will it be like it was for CBS, where they only a couple? So I mean, this is ESPN 7 o'clock is second to 3:30 on ABC. So I mean, I don't know, maybe that's a good thing for Gators, right? And I don't remember who it was, but somebody did the stats on Florida's win-loss records based on time in the swamp, and Florida is like elite at 3:30. So give us some 3:30 games in the swamp. We're prepared. I'm prepared for the heat. I will sweat. It'll be okay.
Well, it's a unique situation in places like Gainesville versus Orlando and Miami. These people come from a long ways away. They got to drive 2 and 3, 4 hours to get here. And if you have a day game, it's really hard. And if the motels, sometimes you have to get 2 nights to get 1 night, and make it really hard. So I do love the night atmosphere of the swamp. I think it's exciting. However, there's enough traditions for me to remember a full swamp on 2 p.m. game and all the cameras there and whatever. And I guess also if you get game day, which they're going to get from Miami, right? Which makes it quite a great experience for Gator fans.
Have they announced game day for that game?
Did I see that?
I don't know. I haven't.
I
haven't
saw
seen
some
that.
reference to it somewhere.
You may
I don't
be
know.
right.
What is it? A&M Notre Dame is the night game that day, so that's going to be a pretty appealing one as well. That a potential option, but 3:30 is great. Living in Tampa, it's you have time to get up there, having up so early, and you make it back. In a reasonable.
And you make it back because that traffic going there at nighttime is brutal. 80 on 75.
Issue. We generally drive back after the games, particularly, well, I guess whether or not we have the kids with us, we generally drive back.
What's your go-to? Do you pack a lunch or do you go tailgating? What do you do?
Tailgate. There's a house right across from the president's house, actually, or the old president's house, that we rent a season-long parking spot there.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
We generally grab a Chick-fil-A platter on our way up.
Yeah.
And have it in the back of the car. Set up, but at 3:30 is great for getting back. I love a night game in the Swamp. I will always love a night game in the Swamp. We're tempting the passing out gods here by a 3:30 August 31st, but I'll get back at a normal time, so that's a win.
Allie, do you have a greatest game for you in the Swamp?
Greatest game in the Swamp. Our senior year in college was the South Carolina game where
it was a heck of a game. It'd be hard to beat that one.
Jarvis Moss was Eric's roommate too, which made it that much cooler. And honestly, he had been in trouble the week before, and that whole week, and Eric was kind of like the Jiminy Cricket on Jarvis's shoulder, like when he would start to do, which is why they lived together. That was at request of Urban Meyer, and Eric was not pleased with him for having been in trouble the week before. And he kept saying the entire week, I'm going to make it up this game. I'm going to make it up this game. You watch, I'm going to win this game. And so the fact that, and he actually had 2 blocks in that game, but the last one is the one that we, remember. The fact that he did, and the other hand, he had a broken finger and he couldn't fully even extend that arm. So the fact that he could get it with his good arm too, they're just, that's going to be ingrained in my brain.
It's a great backstory, Scott, for you when that game comes up again. South Carolina does come here, because there's also the other part. Some of this is in one of the books I think you might have, that Charlie Strong had to go down and they had to get back out in the field to block the kick. And Moss was exhausted. I mean, drop dead exhausted, could hardly move. And Charlie told me the story one time. He said, Moss says, I'll go out there. He said, Moss, you stay right here. You got nobody. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to block that. No. He begged to go back on the field, goes back on the field and blocks the kick. And what a night that was. That game, Spurrier had that game in hand, except for that penalty down there, and huge win that was to Urban, because Urban said, if I'd lost that game to Steve, my life would have been miserable, as it was.
What's even crazier about that, Jarvis Moss spent that entire season sleeping on an air mattress on the floor too.
You told me that once before.
Own a bed, and honestly, we did say, can we buy you a bed? What are we?
Yeah.
He had it was a full-sized air mattress blown up on the floor. He had no dresser, no, he had 5 outfits that he wore on repeat. But I mean, he came from nothing. And the fact that
was he in there? Where was he? An apartment?
No, they had a house on 27th Street, right off University.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, all the furniture in it was Eric's. The couch, the coffee table, the kitchen table, all of that stuff, the TVs. But Jarvis, the fact that the guy that won the game, that hero,
that's a great story,
slept on an air mattress on the floor.
Well, there's a FloridaGators.com story waiting to be written by you, Scott.
That's good insight.
I mean, people talk about NIL. That would have been the,
we were talking there. That's what I was thinking about. Thankfully, I don't think, these guys today have to sleep on an air mattress, or they shouldn't, unless they just blow all their money. But
they should own the furniture store. for crying out loud.
Yes. But it's just times have changed for the better in that regard.
Charlie Pell told me that one of the first two big things happened to him. He had his own NIL deal, Charlie did. He ran into Dave Thomas of Wendy's. And his daughter, I think Wendy herself, went to Florida.
Yeah.
And he said, he met Dave Thomas, says, what can I do to help you? He said, well, I could sure use some new beds and a weight room. And one of the ways he got the beds, he went to Badcock Furniture because none of the beds were big enough for the players. They had no places to sleep. Then he also got his weight room. And so that's how it was done by Charlie back in the day. He had some great handshakes. Scott, what's your favorite moment in the Swamp?
Oh, boy. I'm going to always probably stick with that 97 Florida State game.
That's a good one.
That's the loudest I think I've ever heard the place. And, it's just one of those that sticks. I was a little younger then. It still resonates with me. So that will probably always be number one. By it kind of closest second would be, it wasn't nearly the biggest game like that when that Callaway had the touchdown against Tennessee. The place was just crazy that night.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, we need more of those, because they used to happen a lot more often. So
it seems that way.
I can't wait.
Game against LSU was pretty loud too.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Speaking of the stadium, I see that they're starting to talk about the $400 million changes.
Did you see that survey that went out?
I didn't get a copy of it. What was it?
I
heard about it.
I haven't filled it out yet. I did get it.
So I filled it out when it came in, but it definitely made me concerned that we are for sure catering to the 1%.
No doubt about
it. And even at some of the questions didn't even give you room to make a selection that wasn't something that was a massive change.
Sure.
It was like, you vote for a party deck, or would you prefer a luxury booth or luxury box on the field, or would you
a swimming pool or whatever?
I mean, truly is kind of, that's not far off from some of the options. There was at the beginning, they had you rank your priorities. And so you could say that in-game experience, from food to alcohol that was available to traditions, you could comfort. I ranked comfort last because I don't want to get rid of seats. I'm okay if I'm uncomfortable, just win. But after that question, it definitely turned to party deck central.
Well, I would settle. I'll be glad to pay for it too. A press box seat where I can actually see the scoreboard. And I would be glad to pay for my part on that, and my $25 a game. That's what I can afford. But I'm afraid, Scott, that that is probably not high on the priorities because there's no NIL deals in the press box.
No, I'm just kind of as interested as anyone else. I don't think it's anywhere close to being anything finalized. I understand they're collecting information now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like the general fan. I just want the place to still seem like what we know whenever it's done, whatever they do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to do. I get it. I always refer to Fenway Park. They've done such a great job maintaining that place, even though on the outside of what you see on TV, it looks revamped and nice. If you're underneath that place, you feel like you're in 1935 Boston. Fenway Park. And I hope that whatever they do in the Swamp, it's there's still some of that left. So we'll see. I know it doesn't seem like everybody's going to be happy regardless of what they do. I get that. It's just you don't want to. I think the key here is just keeping it close to being the Swamp, because anything different, and then I think you're going to lose some people.
Yeah. All right. Now you guys have stayed overtime. You've been terrific, both of you. Before you go, I know you're not huge golf fans, but the PGA does start tomorrow at Valhalla. What a beautiful clubhouse that is. Have you seen it? Gorgeous. Jack Douglas built it. And a lot of talk about what's happening between the LIV and the PGA Tour and what have you. Tiger's going to try to play. Part of me is happy. part of me is sad about watching him do that. Give me your thoughts, both of you. Give me a golfer. Can you even think of a golfer that you'd like to see win or think will win? And tell me your thoughts about Tiger. Scott, you go first.
Well, last time I talked golf with you, buddy, I picked the winner of the TPC over at Jacksonville. So I'm sticking with Scotty Scheffler.
That's right, you did. Of course, anybody did that for a month.
It's like picking Michael Jordan as a good basketball player.
Yeah.
That's who I'm going with. But as far as Tiger Woods, I mean, just as a casual golf fan, it would make me watch it, more likely to watch it if he's playing. So I'm, it's always hard to see great athletes kind of
really
is. We've seen it over and over in pro sports, and it's kind of what we're seeing with Tiger. But he's so different that who knows? Maybe he still has one last run in him. I don't know, but I'll watch if he's playing on Saturday or Sunday.
Who are you picking? Scheffler. He had a baby,
Is he not playing?
Yeah, he's playing.
Okay, if he wasn't playing, I was going to pick his baby. So
okay.
The hardest thing in all of sports is to know when to hang it up, right? That's literally what all of these pro athletes struggle with. But there's been golfers that, have played well past the age that Tiger is. So it's not the same as a football player not knowing when to hang it up, or a basketball player or something like that. But golf is more fun when Tiger's good, right? Like you pick up the casual fan because it's Tiger Woods.
Exactly. All right, guys. Have a good week. Have a good weekend. Enjoy it. Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you, Allie. Great to talk to you again. And we'll catch up soon.
Sounds good.
Scott Carter, Allie Peek Wilbur on the Buddy Martin Show. I believe we got hiding in here somewhere. Let's see if he's still there. No, he's gone now. Franz checked in earlier, and he's gone now, I think. I want to tell you about my friends at Renstar. I do this every night with a great amount of joy and appreciation because of what they do in our community in Ocala and North Central Florida, looking out for our health and welfare. Also, they're a local company. They were founded by two local people, both Gators, by the way, and they've done some wonderful things in our community. They're both big Gators. They do an excellent job in our community and for the Gators. And Scott Bradley's wife, Mary, of course, being one of those, and Joe Sorrentino, his son, of course, played at Florida. So I want to say a thank you for all that, but I want to tell you the importance of why you should pay attention to these things called clinical trials, because they do affect you. Clinical trials are used all the time to bring new therapies to market, and how you can take part in this is they have clinical trials consistently. They've had them every year, 3 and 4 and 5 at a time. And they want your local participation in them if possible, because it helps them get data they need to be able to get the kind of clinical help they need from these companies who participate in the prescriptions that we all use. So clinical trials are very important. They do bring therapies to the public safely. You can get involved and you can get access to study-related medications at no charge to you. If you want to go to the website, Renstar Medical Research, and find out more about it. And you could be compensated for time and travel in some cases. So do yourself a favor, do the favor to all the people in the community. Check out the clinical trials they have at Renstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Thank you to our sponsors tonight, including Renstar, Titan MRI, and our friends at Meldon Law. Also, our guest tonight, Allie Peek Wilbur and Scott Carter. Next Wednesday, we'll have David Moulton back. And tomorrow night, we'll have the Orange and Blue Bloods chatting it up. We'll talk more about the big news. Cormani McClain's a Gator. We expect to have more news on that by tomorrow. Meanwhile, have a good night. I hope you enjoyed the program. We enjoyed bringing it to you. I'm Buddy Martin. Good night.